There's going to be a way to fix this. People aren't prioritizing it because it doesn't kill you. I want to find ways to get it better, and I'll do anything I can to figure that out. So it's 2 years later now, and I'm 90% better. And I was like, if I can help anyone else get to this point, because I was at a point of like disability, then that's amazing. And
Welcome back to Behind the Waitlist. Today, we're going to be exploring a condition called POTS. It is something that is growing in awareness and more people are being diagnosed with. But what exactly is POTS? How is it diagnosed? What sort of symptoms do people display? And what are the treatment options? I want to know everything. So I've invited Shannah Lauren onto the pod today. She is a POTS coach and somebody who has dealt with POTS since she was just 14 years old. Don't forget to subscribe and comment your story below and enjoy the episode. Shannah, thank you so much for coming on the podcast today to share more about your experience and your expertise with POTS. So, to get us started, I'd love to learn more about your background as a POTS coach.
okay. So basically, when I was around 14 years old, I ended up getting mono, which at the time it was kind of funny because it was like the kissing disease, and I didn't know anything about it. I didn't kiss anyone, so it was like I felt so like awkward having that or whatever. But so after that, I started having a lot of health issues, and I started passing out in school. I started getting really tired, and a lot of people in school just were like, "Oh, you're being lazy." My PE coaches, and I was like, "No, I think I'm actually like allergic to running." They were like, "No." I'm like, "I think I'm allergic to running in the sun. Like, I don't know what it is, but I feel really weird." And back then, I'm 33 now. So back then, the PE coaches hated me. And I tried to explain it to my mom, and she didn't really, she was like, like, you're fine. It's nothing. And so I got to the eighth grade, and I actually passed out in school, and I fainted like in the bathroom. And I completely forgot what grade I was in. I went to the wrong classroom, sat in my old desk,
Oh my
and
God.
I was like, they were like, Shannah, like you haven't been in this class in a year. And I was like, what are you talking about? Like, I'm in the seventh grade, and this is my writing class. And they're like, no, you're in the eighth grade now. And so they rushed me out of school. They did a bunch of tests, and my white blood cell count was really, really high. And they were trying to figure out if it was like cancers or anything, and nothing was coming back. And I mean, we did testing. I ended up getting homeschooled because they didn't want to risk me passing out in school ever again. And yeah, and nothing came of it. So it was a struggle, especially through teen years. I knew it was kind of funny. I knew I couldn't drink alcohol because if I drank alcohol, I would pass out. And people would be like, well, you're drinking too much. I'm like, no, like I'm having a couple of drinks and I'm passing out. And then smoking, anything like that, couldn't do any of that. So I was like the oddball because I couldn't seem to like do anything that normal kids could do, or teenagers could do. So yeah, I kept getting like no diagnosis. No one really knew what it was. And it wasn't until I was 26. I actually was in the ER for like the billionth time, and it was a nurse that was like, you have POTS. Like, we've seen you enough. We know. And it was just, he was like, not anyone really talks about it. And there's like not a cure. You're not going to die, but you have POTS. And yeah. And then I started learning more about POTS at 26. And it was a whole thing from there because I was like, now I have a diagnosis, I can have a solution. And there was no solution. And doctors were like, there's nothing we can do. Like, what do you think? We're gonna fix it? And I'm like, yeah, like it's kind of the
Insane.
plan. So I wanted to be a POTS coach after it was about 2 years ago. I just said, you know what, I've had enough. I want to figure out there is a solution. There's going to be a way to fix this. People aren't prioritizing it because it doesn't kill you. So I want to find ways to get it better, and I'll do anything I can to figure that out. So it's 2 years later now, and I'm 90% better. And I was like, if I can help anyone else get to this point, because I was at a point of like disability, then that's amazing. And that's kind of all I want to do.
That was quite a long diagnosis process. I keep hearing,
Yeah.
especially things like chronic conditions, like the diagnosis process is so long and it feels like doctors quite often
Mhm.
like fob people off or they're just like they don't want
Yeah.
to hear about it or
I
know
don't
about it.
want to
You kind of,
deal with it.
yeah, and you kind of have
Yeah.
to do your own research, which is what it sounds like.
It's really difficult because I even just had this recently. I have had a doctor for a long time. I had one doctor who was really good, and she was just like, "Let's figure it out. Let's try out some stuff." But then I ended up switching to a different doctor eventually for
Mm.
insurance stuff in America. You like gotta switch as soon as you get a new insurance. But I got this new doctor, and she's like, "Oh, I have a ton of POTS patients," and I was like, "Great." And she's like, "There's nothing to do." So
My
I was like,
God.
okay, well, I'm just going to go to you for testing and seeing my overall results, but I know that I've got to like be my own advocate. So I started doing a lot of stuff to trial with myself for like
Hmm.
inflammation mostly. So I was doing all this stuff and I started to notice I was getting better. And then so I told her, I'm like, this, add this, tell all of your patients. Like,
Mm.
I would rather her go down as like the doctor who figured it out and helping and like solve all these people's problems.
Yeah.
And when I went to my follow-up appointment after my blood work was done, my blood work came back great, of course, and like everything. And I was like, well, I
Wow.
feel so good. And she was like, well, there's nothing we can do. And, we're going to have to just kind of let you figure out life. And I was like, you totally forgot everything I told you. Like,
Mm.
it's like she didn't listen. It's like you're kind of like a ghost that's invisible and you're just talking and they're just kind of like nodding their head and they're like, oh, well, we'll figure it out or, drink a lot of water, wear compression socks, like electrolytes. And that's like the same old. But I'm like, okay, that's not actually going to fix it though. Like, that's not going to change anything. So that's why a lot of POTS people aren't getting better. And I know it's hard because a lot of them do want like medication, just to take medication and it's fixed. Um, it's not the reality though. Like we have to do a complete reset to our bodies to be able to actually fix the real problem. It's like putting a band-aid over something that's just like an open wound. It's just going to keep going. So you have to actually fix the source of the problem. And you need a doctor or yourself to really push to find that source. So
Hmm.
yeah, but doctors, unfortunately, a lot of them are like, it's nothing. Or it's anxiety. Um, they don't actually crack down to what it really, really is. And especially after COVID, they just kind of were like, well, it happens and it happened after COVID. So like, what can we do? Um, I wish they took it more seriously because I think it affects a lot of people's mental health, which is where the other part comes into. So,
Hmm. Yeah, I always think, when people say like it's just feeling faint, it's not that serious, but actually
oh yeah.
fainting, I mean, I've fainted. It's one of the scariest
Oh, so you have
experiences
POTS too?
ever. I know I don't have POTS,
Oh,
but
okay.
I have low blood pressure, so I've fainted, and
Yeah.
I feel like fainting isn't taken seriously because it's a really
No,
scary
it's
thing.
well, as a woman too, it's really, and that's something that my husband had to understand because he was kind of like, well, I fainted before. And I was like, okay, well, what happens if I faint in a parking lot, or
Yeah.
in a
Hmm.
situation? Now, we've been together for a really long time, but like he sees it where when we're at a theme park or we're going on somewhere or a trip and we're on a mountain, I'm like, and I start to feel it he'll be like, oh God, like, what do we do? And I'm like, this is every day. Like, this is
Yeah.
walking around the house. This is, I have two sons and they're aware of my POTS. So when I'm like, okay, I'm feeling like potsy today, they're like, okay, so we need to kind of be on high alert with her, just to make sure if I feel, like off. And it's hard because it can change in a second. Like you can be like, I'm feeling so good. And then all of a sudden, you're like, actually, I'm not. And I'm feeling like a decline down. And one day is great, next day is bad. And yeah, so that's what it's finding that stability is the hardest. And once you start to get that, you start to feel like you get your life back. When you have like 2 days in a row that you're like, I felt good for 2 days, like it's the best feeling in the world. And yeah, a lot of people they don't take the fainting part seriously. They think it's and doctors are like, you get lightheaded. It's like it's hard to do anything. You can't work properly. You can't think properly. It affects everything.
Hmm.
So your breathing, your heart rate, it will give you like nausea and GI issues, like everything. So you can be like, well, I have all these issues, but really it's like cracks down to your system. It's just like all messed up. So,
Hmm. And you can't predict it. I think that's a really scary thing. So,
yeah.
In terms of sort of like your typical clients, obviously you work with people that have POTS. Why do they seek coaching? Is it because they haven't really had that support from their doctor?
Yeah, so basically, like the best way to think about a POTS coach, it's like if you're trying to have a fitness coach, they need someone to help them actually keep up with their diet, hold them accountable, be able to be a good support system for them, recommend them to the right specialists. So instead of trying to figure this out all by themselves and it take, 5 to 10 years, it's like you could be feeling better within a year and like just having a POTS coach be able to guide you in the right directions and be able to work through your diet because so much of it is actually down to your diet. And I think that's where a lot of people don't understand. That's where doctors are not talking about it. And I think it's because of like stubbornness a little bit from people. And I know that from myself too, being able to keep them on track. And that's where a POTS coach does come in because it is your responsibility to be like, okay, what did you eat this week? Let's go through your chart. Let's, keep notes of what, made you feel better, what made you feel worse. And then like, okay, well, we need to quit these things. And then you have someone that's like, did you quit? Like, did we stop this? Just like a fitness coach, if you're like eating all the wrong foods, they're like, girl, stop. Like,
Yeah.
it's not going to make you better. It's not going to help what we're trying to succeed here. So a lot of it is just a big support system. And I know that that was the reason why I wanted to be one was because I needed that. If I had somebody who did hold me accountable and like teach me all of these things, I would have had a normal 20s where I had just a potsy 20s. And yeah, so any point in your life, just getting that part of your life back, you just feel like, man, I missed out on a lot. So I don't want anyone else missing out.
Yeah, I love that. I never even thought about the holding accountable thing, but it's so
Yeah.
true. And also, it must be quite nice if you're feeling isolation, you don't know anyone else with POTS to actually talk to
Yeah.
somebody. Yeah.
That was a big thing because, like, as a 14-year-old with POTS and explaining to people, I just became the girl who fainted. I was like, oh, she faints sometimes. Like, she's fine. So, like, not having anyone to talk to about it was really hard. Explaining, especially to people who are very, like, health friendly. Like, they were like, oh, and they were giving me all this advice and, like, not knowing what it was and no one had pots. And then all of a sudden, everyone had pots. And I was like, this is crazy. But they were at the beginning stages. And like, my heart just like broke for all of them because I was like, I want to help all of you and like friends of mine and, relatives and everything. And I was like, I want to help you guys. But one of the biggest things was like holding them accountable, being like, did you actually quit this? Like, you didn't? Okay, well, like, I love you, but like you gotta let it go. You gotta work on is it you want to get better and you're able to quit this stuff and work on this, or are you just gonna keep doing what you're doing? Um, so that's definitely, and that's where doctors I think are just like, nope, like
Yeah.
not my job. I see you like once every 6 months. There's nothing I can do, but there's
Hmm.
definitely advice that they could give that would help.
Yeah, for sure. And then in terms of somebody that is not sure if they have POTS, what are sort of the symptoms to look out for?
POTS is a form of an autonomic nervous system dysfunction. So symptoms can show up like throughout your entire body. The most common ones are like dizziness, blood pooling, rapid heart rate when standing, fatigue, brain fog, nausea, heart, headaches, temperature dysregulation. That one's like really crazy because you can be really, really hot and then really, really cold and like cannot like regulate that at all. GI issues, fainting, exercise intolerance, and they also can just have an overall feeling of like anxiety. And so yeah, so it's just basically their nervous system is like constantly in a state of dysregulation. So it's a full body condition, not just like you're got a fast heart rate.
Hmm. Yeah, there's a lot of different symptoms. I suppose it
Yeah.
can be confusing, especially like the hot and cold thing if someone's going through menopause or there's a lot of like
Yeah, that's
crossover.
where it's super hard because
Yeah.
when you do go through that and hormonal changes and all that, and
Mm,
yeah, you're like, am I having a heat flash or like, what is this? Yeah, so it's hard
yeah.
with that. So
That sounds so stressful. I can't even think about like every day if I had like a job interview or like a really serious thing. And
yeah,
then in the
you
back of my
can't like
mind,
plan ahead.
yeah, I'm like, will I
Yeah.
faint in the interview? Like that would stress me out. so
Yeah. So
much.
that's where getting in control of it makes a big difference because if you're able to be in control, and that's where a lot of people are like, well, POTS controls me, I can't. And I'm like, no, you actually can find ways to control your POTS. There is ways. I know that not everyone with POTS is the same, and that's true. Not everyone is. But in a lot of majority POTS cases, you are able to find a way to control it. So if you know a big day is coming up, you prep yourself that month for that trip or whatever, and you get it so your body is like good and ready to go. I just went through this in October, and like it helped. It was like a totally different person when I went on a trip. I was like, okay, so it does really work. If you like prep your body enough, you're able to do that. So you're able to face those like big days without feeling like unpredictable. So.
Hmm. Yeah, it's good to have those tools for sure.
Mhm.
And then, so how is it typically diagnosed?
So
That's
that's
tough. Yeah.
That's kind of the hard part, because a lot of doctors, like, for example, like in my town, we don't have a table tilt test anymore. So that's like one of the only ways doctors can actually diagnose. So it's called a table tilt test. And it's essentially just like a big table. They have you like test it as you're laying down and like they check all your blood pressure and your heart rate, and then they put you up and then they test that too over a period of time. And what they want to see is that you stay above 30 beats per minute for longer than I think it's 30 seconds. So they actually call it the poor man's standing test too, that you can do at home. And all you got to do, yeah, it's great. But all you have to do is you can have like a heart monitor or a blood pressure monitor. You test yourself laying down, you keep a notebook, you write that down, and then you test yourself standing up. And then you see where your heart rate is at after, 30 seconds. And checking your blood pressure too to see with that too, because that will help you with medications. Like if they're going to give you like a beta blocker or a propranolol or anything like that, they need to know where your blood pressure is at. So if you have
Mm.
very low blood pressure, they can't recommend things that will make it more dangerous.
Mm.
So yeah, so that's the way they test it, depending on the area you're in. I don't know how long it can take just to get that test alone, so you're able to test it at home yourself.
Hmm. Well, that's pretty good. And I suppose, like you mentioned with the Apple Watches, it's
Yeah.
important then you can, yeah,
Well, that's the
accessible.
best thing about having the Apple Watch is because like
Mm.
it can check if you faint, if you fall, like it can I have one on me all the time and it makes me feel a lot better. It keeps me feeling like safe. And then the one thing I try to do though is like if I start to feel better, I don't want to wear it 24/7. I'm like I want to like I just don't want to think about it. So I want to like just let myself feel my body, trust my body. And if I'm feeling better, then, trust it that way and see. And then I'll test my heart rate and stuff and see how
Hmm.
I'm doing later. So,
Yeah. Okay, that's good. So there's lots of different ways to measure it.
yeah.
Is there any sort of common barriers to getting a diagnosis?
So, yeah. So, the biggest common barrier is actually like awareness. So, a lot of doctors don't know. They don't have any clue of POTS, or they've heard of it and they just don't want to hear it anymore. I actually just got turned down by a cardiologist recently because he was like, no POTS patients don't want to deal with that at all. And I get it. Like,
Oh
I
my
get it
God.
because to them, they have bigger fish to fry. They're like, we have to deal with these heart issues, POTS. And really, POTS isn't necessarily a heart condition because of it being the autonomic system. It's totally different. But when it comes to that, it goes, what specialist am I supposed to go to? So that's where your primary care doctor, it's like, okay, they're not really the specialists. The cardiologists aren't. There's not really an autoimmune disease doctor, kind of is. They can help. But overall, you'd need to see a specialist in like everything. And none of them are really, really good at it. They don't know it that well. So, I'm not saying like forever. I'm saying maybe right now they don't have a lot of knowledge on it. But that's where the awareness is an issue, because a lot of times they'll say it's anxiety. I mean, I've been diagnosed with asthma and it wasn't asthma. So, because of the lung issue and the breathing. So, yeah. So because it does like mimic a lot of other symptoms, they will just kind of put it as it's this. And so that's one of the issues. And the other one is just the feeling of like the fluctuation. That's kind of like you can have like a really, really good day and then like a really bad day. So that's where you can be like, I feel so good today and things are getting better. And then the next day it's like you're declining again.
I think that would stress me out, the fluctuations of it.
Yeah.
And I read some data showing that approximately 85% of POTS patients are women. Are your
Yeah.
clients typically women, or do you deal with men as well?
So they are mostly, I actually only had women for a while. And then I started getting men and men's of all ages. And that was kind of, there's older men that it was kind of crazy. When I was 14, the only other person I knew that had POTS was an older guy. And we didn't know it was POTS. We just knew we had similar symptoms. And he was like in his 40s and 50s. And so as I got older, I was like, oh, it's just me and this one. But yeah, so over time it only is women most of the time that I do have. And then I occasionally will get like a young, like 30, 40-year-old guy,
Mm,
20s. My mom's a clinical therapist. She has a 12-year-old boy who just got diagnosed with POTS too. So it's definitely hitting younger as well.
yeah, that was going to be another question, is what sort of age does it typically affect?
It's the unfortunate thing. It can affect any age now. And I think a lot of that has to do with COVID, unfortunately. And because basically when COVID happened, COVID affected the gut like dramatically. It was like attacking the gut. So it disrupted the microbiome. It stripped like their stomach line. It really affected your gut overall health. And when it did that, it actually caused a lot of POTS in a lot of people. So that's where the connection with that like really did come in. Um, so that's why people of all ages started getting it. People who were really healthy were all of a sudden really sick. And then they were like, we don't know why. And it's like, well, your entire body is actually inflamed now just because of what COVID did directly to your gut. And that's where the POTS would start and everything like that. So, because it's
Wow.
all connected. Like your gut actually controls 80% of your autonomic system. So the fact that it controls that much of your body and your nerves and your brain and your heart and your lungs and your system, if your gut is affected and hit, uh, that's going to disrupt everything else.
It's
So,
insane. I
yeah.
knew so many people that got sick around 2020, and
Hmm.
I also developed endometriosis
Yep.
around 2020. And I was always like, my menstrual cycles were the best. I was so healthy. And then ever since then,
Yeah.
I've had health issues. So, yeah, maybe that was COVID.
Yeah. Well, that's what I ended up getting cancer like 2 years
Oh my
after
God.
COVID. And I was like, the weirdest part about that was I had been going for tests consistently. I would get like pap smears as regular as possible because my grandmother died of cervical cancer. And they were just like, it could happen like genetically. And so I had gone in, it was negative, everything was good. And then 6 months later, I had a cyst in my ovary. So I just got it checked again. And it was a SIN4 cancer, like cancerous cells. And I had to go in, get a hysterectomy, like quickly get it handled. And I truthfully believe in my heart, I was like, that had to be inflammation. Like I must have had inflammation that was making it worse and made it progress as quickly as it did, because that's like to go from nothing to that level. I mean, if I didn't get it handled, like it definitely could have progressed to getting worse and spreading. So yeah, so that's after 2020, I think everyone's system just kind of went like, and it was like wildfire essentially in your
Mm.
body.
Yeah, with inflammation, that's so true. I'm
Yeah.
glad you managed to get everything sorted. I'm so sorry for the hysterectomy
Okay.
as well.
So I was like, I'm glad that I had kids young. That was the thing that I was really grateful for. That was the one thing my doctor was like, you had them young, so you're good. And I was like, I know. So it was
Yeah,
hard.
thank God.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And definitely just trying to get that. I mean, we still had like, it was tough to get the hysterectomy scheduled and everything. So we have that same issue here as you guys do with the NHS, is like getting the ball rolling. But we did within like 6 months. So that was where I was grateful just to get it out of my body and be in the clear again. So.
That's good. I know with a lot of conditions, there's quite a strong link between the condition and trauma, especially things like childhood trauma. Is there a link between POTS and trauma?
So basically, where the link comes in with trauma, it's so POTS doesn't cause, or sorry, trauma doesn't cause POTS, but essentially what trauma does with POTS is that it can enhance it and it can make it get worse really quickly over time. And again, that's because of your overall nervous system that is in your body. If it's under a high amount of stress for a period of time, that is where your POTS can be almost like just like on high alert and get gradually worse. So they're in like it's like living in a heightened state of fear of survival for extended period of time, chronic stress hormone levels, inflammation, autonomic dysregulation, sleep disturbances, immune system changes. All of this can happen based on prolonged trauma. And so, yeah, so they contribute to your POTS, but it doesn't exactly cause the POTS. It just can make it worse. So if you've got POTS during COVID and you're feeling a lot better, if you have something like that trauma or resurface trauma, it can bring it back up.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, sort of making the body more inflamed. Trauma is so
Yeah.
fascinating. I'm reading a book at the moment called The Body Keeps Score. I don't know if you've read
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I've heard
it's
of that. I haven't read it yet though.
fascinating. Yeah, it's so interesting.
Yeah.
And then I've been reading a lot about how trauma is stored in the hips and the psoas muscle.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
yeah, it's crazy. Your
Your
body is
body gets like
reacting.
wired differently after
Yeah.
trauma, and you have to do a lot of different things to rewire that. And like I've been working on that a lot the last 2 years, is like rewiring my brain because I was living in a very heightened state of like fight or flight 24/7. So from my own trauma. And so yeah, so with that trauma, it's hard because you have to rewire it to train your brain to go like everything's okay. You're not in a fight or flight. Everything is fine. Um, and yeah, so something to remember with that as well is like if somebody is in like a domestic violence situation, or a situation of anything like that in the UK, they do have Clare's Law in the UK. So a lot of people I don't think know about Clare's Law. So Clare's Law is an actual source that's available all over the UK where people can contact if they have like suspicions of a partner that they're like talking to, or just like red flags. And they're like, I don't know, like something's off. He's giving me like very different vibes or like lying or something just doesn't seem right. They can actually contact, it's through the police stations now, but they can submit a form and then the people for Clare's Law can contact them and share any information about that partner. And it came from a woman who her name was Claire Wood, and she died because of a person who had was a relationship person that she was with, but he had a past of domestic violence and she had no idea. So it's great that they have that, but that's a good preventative measure. So if you do or you are in that situation where you're curious, it can help you prevent from getting that trauma. So it's
Hmm.
a good source to know about. It's also something I wish it was more publicly known.
I know, yeah, because I've mentioned Claire's Law to a few of my girls
Yeah.
sometimes when the boys are being like questionable. I'm like,
Yeah. I'm
check
like,
them
if
on
there's a
Claire's Law.
red, yeah, if there's a red flag, like just, and you're interested, just ask, like put a form in and see. So at least like you should know
Yeah.
everything about that person's past. And if they do have that past, then at least you understand and can keep yourself safe.
Yeah, for sure. I think especially in a lot of countries now, but especially the UK, I think a man kills a woman once every 3 days or something. It is so
Yeah.
prominent.
It's
So
3.8 million people just last year that dealt with it in
it's
the UK.
insane. It's
And like,
insane.
that is wild to me that it's that much.
Yeah, so you have to be aware for sure.
Yeah.
And then in terms of the kind of risk factors, I know you mentioned inflammatory or having kind
Yeah.
of an inflammatory state in your body. Many people sort of mention inflammatory foods. Is this sort of a big part of managing POTS as well, cutting down on that?
Yeah. So that's where a lot of doctors are not talking about the inflammatory aspect. They talk about that it's the heart, getting medication to reduce your heart rate. And another thing they don't really talk about a lot is the GI issue. So if you go to see like a gastrologist, it's like good to get the test done with them to see exactly what's going on in your stomach. I think a lot of times that's where patients can see, oh my God, I actually do have a lot of inflammation in my gut. And when you do have that inflammation, that's where diet does come in and it affects so much. You have to eliminate a lot out of your diet. And that includes like coffee, alcohol, and dairy products. You go through like the list of all the inflammatory foods and processed foods, things like that. And that's where coaching helps because it's keeping that accountability with your clients, being able to be like, okay, we need to let go of this, 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 try to see if these are causing your POTS or making your POTS worse and inflaming that gut, and then giving your gut a reset to be able to stabilize over time. Because over
Mm,
time, once you start to stabilize your gut, you're able to handle those things in like doses.
mm,
But I think overall, as a culture, we kind of overindulge in a lot of those things that our bodies are not really meant to have all the time.
mm,
So yeah, so that's where it comes in, really breaking down the diet, and your gut is going to 100%, it's going to make a difference and help you.
mm. Yeah, that is so true. I've really been focusing on gut health as well with my condition
Mhm.
because it's inflammatory. And
Yeah,
it has helped, to be fair, definitely.
yeah, it does.
And then, so what factors do you find make managing POTS more challenging for clients?
A lot of that is it definitely depends on the stress that they have in their life. Environmental factors is another one, whether weather conditions, I mean, where they are living, if it's hot, if it's cold, living in Florida, like that is something that definitely isn't easy. Menstrual cycle changes, that's another one. That's why women are kind of more prominent to having POTS is because of that. Having a monthly cycle change can
Mm,
affect your POTS dramatically too.
wow.
Illnesses, um, and poor sleep. Like if you're not having a regular sleeping pattern, that can affect your POTS too. Mostly it's like a lot of stress. Like that's where I think we have a very stressed out world right now. And I think that doesn't help. So when those factors come in, it's hard because you have to learn to manage your body, your mental state, and then your stress levels that's around you as well.
Yeah, it is such a chaotic world right now, and there's so many like expectations, especially from the working side as
I
well.
think it's also like the economy. So they expect more from you,
Yeah,
you know? So they're like, you need to earn this much just to like eat. And yeah, and then when you don't,
crazy.
you're like, okay, so I've got to work harder, I've got to work longer, and then I got to worry about my mental health, and then I'm stressed, and like you need daylight. So like vitamin D, like that's important for you, and
Right?
you're not getting enough daylight because you're stuck in an office all day. It's so many things. We're basically just damaging our bodies over time
Right.
with the expectations that we have on us.
Right. And you know, something I keep seeing like the like funny videos on TikTok and stuff, but it's like about how many job ads will say, willing to work in a fast-paced environment,
Yeah.
work under stress. And it's like some of us literally can't. Some of us have chronic conditions. Stress
Yeah.
is not good.
Yeah. And you know what? Like majority of us are getting chronic conditions. And it's like you
Yeah.
wonder why. It's because we're being put under a heavy amount of stress.
Mm,
And that's where like you'll see a lot of work environments that are really healthy. They're being run right
mm,
because they want to take, those are the ones that are doing well because they want to take
hmm
care of their employees. They worry about their employees' mental health. And you see the ones that are definitely not, and they're just overrunning their people and they're stressing. It's just it's a completely different environment.
hmm
I've experienced both, so I can see the different, especially when you have an employer that's like, "Are you okay?"
mm,
Uh, that's important and they listen compared to ones that are like, you're just like a sheep. Come on, let's go.
hmm
So, yeah, it definitely, and I don't think they understand how much they impact that person mentally and like physically, how it goes together. So,
Yeah, absolutely. I'm such a huge advocate for more like human-centric workplaces. So, in terms of treatments and strategies, so I'd love to know what sort of treatment plans or strategies that you kind of implement. I know you've spoken a little bit about sleeping, making
yeah.
sure you have an anti-inflammatory diet, things like that. What other kind of recommendations would you make?
So I try to teach throughout the whole body. So we need to kind of break it down over time, which is why it's like really helpful to have a coach because, when you're trying to do it yourself, you already have your entire plate and then you have, to worry about adding this into it and changing your day to day. So I try to do like daily pacing strategies to learn how to slowly and changing a lot of your life to try to treat your POTS. Your salt and hydration. We focus on that to see how much salt we're increasing because again, you don't want to increase too much, but you want to increase enough. I've noticed a lot of like POTS patients, like including myself, we don't really like sodium. It's weird, but it's like our bodies need it, but we're like we don't want it as much. Blood flow techniques and anti-inflammatory nutrition. That's probably the most important one that I try to focus on because I'm like, while we're doing everything, I'm like, okay, like let's slowly change your diet. We don't need to do a quick detox because it's harder for you to stick with. Like, let's do it slowly over time and then start adding little things and changing little aspects of your diet, your gut support, your nervous system regulation. Sleep optimization is really important. It's like I remember I learned this study that if you stay up past, I think it's like 2 a.m., your body goes into fight or flight. So if
No
you're nat
way.
yeah, so if you're naturally a night owl and you're like, all right, it's 2 a.m. or like going out drinking, and so your goes straight into fight or flight mode,
My
and
God.
you're like, you wonder why you start to get into a really bad sleeping pattern or you feel more anxious the next day, and it's because your body actually didn't get like any REM sleep that night because it was in a state of like worry and concern, which goes back to like the caveman days. So because if you're up late, it means that danger's nearby. So that was something I thought was like so interesting because I
Mm,
had been staying up every night and my body, I have really bad insomnia if I stay up past 2.
mm,
If I go to sleep at like 11 or midnight, I'm great and I get a great night's sleep.
mm,
Um, so strength exercising, that's one thing too, is because you want to exercise. A lot of people will try to say like they're exercise intolerant, they can't exercise. But if you don't
mm,
exercise, that's going to increase your inflammation in your body. It's going to make it worse. So it's doing slow and exercising and not pushing
okay.
yourself too hard, but like getting a walking treadmill and walking for like, 20 minutes a day. Like just doing
Hmm.
something at a slow pace, like swimming, something that's going to get your body still moving so you're not just sat down or laying down all day.
Mm,
Lifestyle modifications and flare-up plans. That's a big
hmm.
one because if you have a plan, if you have a flare-up, you feel a lot more comfortable actually going out and doing things, which is going to help your body too.
Hmm.
So, yeah, everything I teach is very personalized to the person, because obviously POTS is kind of like on a spectrum of where you are, and with it and what you're able to do, how old you are.
Hmm.
And then, yeah, and I don't want to overwhelm like anybody who has it. So I want to just go at their pace that they're comfortable with and then just be their support that they need.
Mm. I follow a content creator and I don't remember her name. I'll have to send her to you, but she basically goes to the gym. She loves going to the gym, but she faints in the gym
Yeah,
like
that's brave.
constantly. Yeah.
Yeah.
So she's
I
made
she
plans.
I
Yeah.
follow her. Yeah,
Oh, do you
she
follow her? Okay.
yes. And I'm like, I envy you, but God, because I used to go to the gym all the time. I loved it.
Yeah.
And as soon as I felt fancy, I would run to the bathroom to
Mm.
like lay down on the ground. And I would think of her and I was like, girl, you are a brave soul. I can't imagine just
Crazy.
fainting and especially like weightlifting because I loved
Yeah.
weightlifting. I terrifying. Like I don't want to fall with
Scary.
weights. So yeah, the fact that she does it, I mean, I think her boyfriend goes with her too. I don't know if I'm right about that.
Mm.
But I mean, what a great support system to have
Yeah.
somebody there watching over you, making sure you're okay.
Hmm.
But doing that alone, if she does do it alone, like wow. Like, I mean, that's amazing that she can feel comfortable to do it because I couldn't. I'd be so
Yeah.
scared. So,
Yeah, because I was going to say, sort of with cardio, I can understand if you're getting lightheaded, but with
yeah.
POTS, even with like weightlifting and things like that, you just get lightheaded as well.
Oh yeah, like I can't do lunges for the life of me.
God.
I want to do lunges so
Mhm.
bad, but if I start to do lunges, like my heart rate will go to 60 to 180.
Wow.
And I have to lay down and get it back down to a normal level.
Mm,
But yeah, it's hard because any like weightlifting like that, doing like squats, I have to be careful just watching my heart rate and seeing how high it will go and then knowing like how to calm it down. So there's a lot of exercises that, which is why I try to promote with my clients, like the ones that are safe, like the ones that you're on the floor, you're able to still do muscle building if you want to do muscle building, but you're not standing up or, pushing that your heart too hard for that. So yeah,
mm,
but brave souls
makes
out there because a
sense.
lot of girls I
I
follow that have
know.
POTS, they work out and I'm like, you guys are so good, but I'm
I
not
know.
there yet. So
I know. I always worry for them, like, be careful.
I know. I'm like, what if something falls on you? Like, I don't know. Like,
I
I get
know.
nervous because we'll like go to theme parks and I know
Mm.
we're walking all day. And like the worst was we went to Disney recently and I was on one side of the park and we had to get to the other side and it was so hot and I was like, I don't know if I'm gonna make it. Like, I don't what happens halfway, you know? And there are some parks too that are really good for POTS. Like they know it, they treat it, they help you, which is like Universal is
Oh,
great for it. Disney is not great for POTS. They don't really like care about it as much.
oh, that's
So,
not
and they
good.
don't have a lot of like water fountains. That's the other thing.
Mm.
So, like, Universal has like endless water fountains everywhere. They let you go on like the rides faster if you have POTS and stuff.
Oh, that's
Yeah, so
so
it's cool.
good.
Yeah, so there's some theme parks that are really great about it, and then other ones that are just like, no. But it's so
Oh,
awkward saying I have POTS because
yeah.
sometimes people are like, what? You have what?
It's
So,
so frustrating. I feel like the world is so inaccessible to a lot of people that are just
yeah.
not aware of, what people are actually going through. Shame on Disney, though. I mean, for such a huge brand with a lot of
Yeah.
money, come on, guys.
I exactly. That's why I was really surprised this year with
Mm.
they do have like a disability program, but you have to do like interviews with people on Zoom
Oh,
over it. So when we went and I was like having a rough day, I was like, I asked one of the workers there, I was like, well, what can I do? Because the line was like really, really long and it was in the heat. And I was like, what? And they were like, I don't know, like get water or something, get a wheelchair, or like, I don't
oh
know,
my
figure out. It's
God.
like, okay,
That is
like
so
you
terrible.
yeah, so after this year, we're not doing Disney again because of
Yeah,
it.
I don't blame you. Boycott Disney.
Yeah, I couldn't do, yeah, they didn't have any like water. They have water fountains. They're just harder to find. And I was like, that's crazy to me that they don't have them everywhere because they want you
Yeah,
to buy water. And I'm like, kind of need it. And
no,
I
that's
carry like
terrible.
four water bottles with me. So yeah, it was a little crazy.
Especially
Um,
in Florida as well, like the heat.
in the summertime. Yeah, I'm like, how do you
Mm,
guys like I'm not
not
surprised
cool.
that people have heat strokes there for sure.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
they should be passing out water bottles like
For free. Yeah.
yeah, for free. Like they make enough. They could
Yeah.
manage it,
Oh my God, for
So,
sure.
yeah.
I guess that goes to my next question actually. Like it seems to be there's quite a large misunderstanding of POTS. What
Yeah.
are the sort of biggest myths or misconceptions that you encounter with POTS?
So, one of the biggest misconceptions is that it's just anxiety. Like, that is usually for the first years of my life, that was what everyone said. It was, it's anxiety, you're just stressed out. Asthma got thrown in there, which was a couple years. And I was like, okay, well, I guess, like, maybe it is that. Another idea is that it's rare. It's not rare anymore. Maybe when I was younger, I guess it could have been rare. But now it's just a lot more common, and that the symptoms are exaggerated. So, like when people are talking about fainting or how tired they are, um, the heat intolerance or just their temperature regulation, like to understand how hard that is, like every day to feel that. It's so debilitating, and it can cause so much mental health issues to not feel supported. Um, in that. So there's a lot of misconception that if somebody like looks fine because we look normal, like we don't look any
Yeah,
different.
hidden.
They're like,
Mm.
you have POTS, like you don't look like you have POTS. Or like, I'll be riding a bike with my kid one day and the next day I'm like couch bound and they're like, well, Like you're just kind of feeling lazy today. It's like, no, I like suck
That's
because my
crazy.
heart's super high.
Yeah.
So another one is that drinking water is just gonna fix it. Like if I go to my doctor, that's like the first thing they say is like, well, how much water are you drinking? And it's true, we need to drink more water. I get that. But it's not going to cure it. And you have to completely, like, again, reset your gut to be able to really start to see better, some like your symptoms get better over time. Um, and start regulating your stress, your vagus nerve, and making sure that you're eating the right foods and stuff. So it's not
Hmm.
just drinking water. And yeah, so it's not it's like it's an invisible illness but with very overall physical roots down deep.
I think that's the thing about hidden disabilities is a lot of people just say, well, if you don't have a walking stick or you don't look disabled, then you mustn't be.
If we're not in wheelchairs, then we're not actually disabled. Like that's been hard because like there's been times that I've wanted to just be like, I need because it would be better, I think, for me if I just went around in a wheelchair, but I don't think it would. I think I need to kind of push through that a little bit. I'm not saying that like that's for everyone. A lot of people do need it. Like the girl who freaking passes out at the gym, I'm like, God help you. Like that's
Yeah.
amazing that she's working like fighting through that. But yeah, like it's for me, I want to try to go as long as I can without going into a wheelchair. Like I want to try to see if I can, walk longer, stand up longer, be able to manage my day to day. Driving's really hard. That was kind of a tough thing because we're sensitive to light, which is really weird. Certain lightings in stores, things like that can really mess with it. It's almost like epilepsy. But so driving, especially with like the new headlights that are like the bluer
So
tint,
bright. Yeah.
yeah, it can send your body into a fight or flight out of complete nowhere when you're driving. And so that's kind of hard because as things are changing, they're actually like making pots worse because of lighting and sounds and stuff like that too. So yeah,
So
it's
funny
hard.
the light went out as you were saying lighting.
I know. I'm like, it's my
It
computer.
had, yeah.
It's
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely think the world needs to understand that people have different needs. I
yeah.
think, yeah, for
Yeah,
sure.
like it's like if I was in one of those carts like at Walmart, over here that
Yeah.
you could drive them around. I know I would get looks like, girl, like you're being lazy. And it's like,
Yeah.
I am just trying to exist right now. Okay. I just want to
Mm,
get some shopping done without feeling terrible.
yeah.
But I just like grab a cart and I just like lean on it if I'm feeling bad because I'm like,
Yeah.
yeah, it's just not an understanding culture of invisible illnesses,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
so much
Same in the
judgment.
UK.
Yeah.
Yeah, so much judgment. I have like a disabled badge for my car when I get
Yeah.
really bad. The amount of looks I get if I have to
Yeah.
use it, which I only do if I'm in a lot of pain, but like it's just so
Yeah.
judgmental. Hate
Oh
it.
yeah, they're like, "Oh, you're disabled." Like actually, yes. Like I've
Yeah.
had moments like that with people, especially like when I went to a theme park and I had to go around with because of my POTS. And people were kind of like, "Okay, well, how disabled are you?" And I'm like, "You want to find out?"
Yeah.
Like, you want to see for yourself and like watch let's measure our heart rates together and let's see.
Literally.
So yeah, so I'm like, it can get pretty bad and it's hard because yeah, they don't see it. And I wanted so bad to have like a disability dog. I tried. I had two German Shepherds and I tried to
No.
train one of them to be so
Yeah.
they could go with me and make me feel better about going in public. But they're terrible with that. So they're not meant for that.
Hard to train, yeah.
Yeah.
That would be nice though, definitely.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And then, so for somebody who's sort of learning about POTS, what resources would you recommend, whether it's like apps, books, online communities, anything like that?
Yeah, so definitely I'm trying to write a book on it to try to help. I love to read. So I know like if I read a lot of parenting books and things like that and I know if I need help, like that's the best way. So I wanted to write one to help people be able to conquer their POTS in their own time, like in gradual pace and stuff. But the best way I think is definitely finding like Facebook groups. TikTok's been great. There's such a large community. Instagram, there's a large community too. Being able to connect with people who have POTS who are really working on it. I think people who are really challenging to find solutions and ways that they can get better, and then just an overall support system. You start to feel just more understood and just like more comfortable in your own skin, being like, I'm not crazy. And it's good to send those like videos and stuff to your friends and your family and your partners too who don't have it, because then they can help, they can start to understand you too. So I see
Mm.
that that's like definitely something that that a lot of people need, is to understand their partners or their friendships, because they don't understand what it's like to not know how you're going to feel tomorrow. So a lot of like POTS patients, they can't like plan in advance. Like they don't know if they're going to feel good in a month. So they don't know if they want to like plan something, especially if it's like a hot season or whatever that triggers them. So yeah, so it's good to have those sources to be able to send to their loved ones.
That's such a good hack, actually. I'd never thought about doing so they get a better understanding.
Hmm.
And then are you taking on any new clients at the moment?
I am, yeah.
Okay.
So for 2026, I'm starting to take on some more. I'm trying to kind of, I want to bring in as many people as I can to especially start running through some trials with people to be able to start to see if it makes what it's making a difference the most, especially with certain age ranges too. So yeah, so I'm excited. I love talking to people. I love helping them. So being able to be on their journey, and help them get better is something that, I really wanted to do for a long time.
I love that. I think when you have a personal experience in it, it makes you definitely more passionate about helping others. I love
Yeah.
that. So I will direct listeners to your website if that's
Okay, yeah.
okay, if they
Yeah,
want
that's
to book
great.
in with you or have a chat with you.
That sounds
Um,
good.
if somebody did want to find maybe like a local coach, an in-person coach, anything like that,
Mhm.
is there any way that you'd recommend finding a good POTS coach as well?
I would say trying to find, it might not be necessarily like classified as a POTS coach, but maybe like a health coach or a nutrition coach, locally nearby. Um, Something like that I think would be really beneficial. And then talking to them specifically about your like chronic illness, being able to, so they can do the research and then help you along the way. So
Mm.
that would probably be the best way that I would suggest to do that.
Yeah, that's a really good idea, like an anti-inflammatory kind of
Yeah,
coach.
because
Yeah.
if you leave it to like a nutritionist or a health coach, I know like over in the States we have like the Mayo Clinic. I heard that they do some of that too. So like being able to give that information and then be like, I have POTS, I want to, get better. What would you suggest or anything? Have them do research on it and then they can figure that out too. So
That's a really good idea as well. Well, thank you so much. You've
yeah,
given me
thank you.
so much information. I feel like I know so much about POTS now, and I hope it's the same
That's
for my
good.
listeners. So thank you.
No, awesome. That's what I just want to share as much information that I can possibly can with anybody so it can help them and help if they have friends or family that they know, okay, well, this is what you can do and everything like that too. So yeah, so I'm
Yeah,
glad.
absolutely. Well, thank you so much for being on the pod.
Thank you. It was great talking to you.
Perfect.